Only if this story truly resonates with you. Please hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment with the city or country you're watching from and your local time. My name is Emily. I'm 28, and this is the night that changed everything in my family forever. It started innocently enough, the smell of roasted turkey and pumpkin pie filling the air, laughter bouncing off the walls. But the moment I set the salad bowl on the polished oak table, my father-in-law, Robert, slammed his hand down with such force the silverware jumped. "Since you failed to give this family an heir, your marriage ends tonight," he barked, his voice slicing through the room like a knife. Jason didn't even glance at me, his fingers tightening around his fork as if avoiding my gaze could erase this moment. I whispered, What are you saying?" But Robert just sneered. "I'm saying your time here is over." My mother-in-law, Linda, let out a short, condescending laugh, glancing at my step-siblings who smirked knowingly, and one of them, a teenage girl, muttered, "Finally." I felt my chest tighten, my throat dry, but I tried to keep my voice steady. "Jason, please, look at me. This isn't fair," I said, my hands trembling over the edge of the table. He kept staring down, silent, unwilling or unable to defend me. The folder hit the table with a thud as Robert tossed it toward me, the divorce papers spilling like a cruel invitation. I picked them up slowly, every eye in the room burning into me, and my fingers shook as I traced the lines of legalese that would dissolve my marriage in seconds. I wanted to scream, to throw the papers back, to demand someone, anyone, speak for me, but nothing came out. My mind flashed to all the subtle signs I had ignored, the whispered doubts, the judging stares, the quiet comments about family expectations that had followed me since the day I married into this family. And then, as if sensing my despair, my best friend Sophie sent me a quick text. "Stay calm. You'll need this moment later." I swallowed hard, my stomach knotting, trying to steady the tremor in my hands. I looked around the table, seeing my own parents, David and Susan, sitting tensely, unsure how to intervene. I felt trapped, humiliated, and invisible, but also the tiniest spark of defiance began to glow inside me. I cleared my throat and forced a small, shaky laugh. I guess this is how Thanksgiving goes in some families, hoping it would sound casual, but everyone's eyes sharpened on me. Robert leaned back in his chair, smirking as if he had already won, and I realized there was more at stake here than just a piece of paper. Something important, something I had hidden, could turn the tide, and it was buried in a way no one expected. This was the beginning, the moment that would make me question everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my in-laws, and the family secrets that had been carefully concealed from everyone, including me, until now. As I sat frozen at the Thanksgiving table, my mind drifted back to the first time I felt invisible in my own family. I remembered sitting at my parents' kitchen table as a little girl, watching my older brother Mark open presents first while I waited patiently for my turn, only to have him snatch the toy I had been hoping for, and my mother, Susan, only shaking her head at me with a half-smile that said, "Be patient, Emily. He is older." My father, David, had not intervened, his eyes fixed on the newspaper, as if the scolding or unfairness were meant to teach me something I could not yet understand. Later at school, when I mentioned feeling left out of family plans or ignored at birthdays, my parents would brush it off. "Emily, you are too sensitive." That phrase became a quiet echo in my head, a reminder that my feelings were never as important as the expectations others had for me. I could still see the pattern with my in-laws now, how subtle favoritism and rigid rules had been passed down and mirrored in this new family I had married into. Sitting here, facing Robert's cold stare, the unfair accusations, and the smirks of the step-siblings, I felt that old familiar ache, the one that had lived in the corners of my childhood, creeping back. "Emily, do you even know how family works?" Linda's voice cut through my thoughts sharply, and I glanced at Jason, silently pleading. "Jason, is this really our life?" He looked down, refusing to meet my gaze, as if agreeing would betray his father's authority. I remembered the wooden floors of my childhood home, the sound of my small feet running across them, racing to get my voice heard, and how often it went unnoticed. The smell of roasted turkey today mingled with that memory, making the contrast between past and present unbearable. Even Sophie's quiet presence and her reassuring glance were not enough to make the humiliation go away, but it reminded me I was not entirely alone. I clenched my fists under the table, thinking, This is more than a holiday gone wrong. This is a test of every hidden truth I have carried, every quiet strength I have kept to myself. And as my eyes landed on the folded napkins perfectly aligned beside the silverware, I realized that the surface order of this house masked deeper tensions, secrets that no one, not even Jason, truly understood yet, and that these hidden truths could change everything if revealed at the right moment. For the first time that evening, I did not flinch. I did not shrink under the weight of judgment as my father-in-law's eyes bore into me. I felt the familiar urge to apologize silently, to make myself small as I had learned to do so many times before, but something shifted within me. I lifted my chin, held my shoulders back, and met Robert's stare without wavering. "Emily, are you even listening?" Linda asked sharply, her voice cutting across the room, but I simply nodded, my calm composure speaking louder than any words could. Jason glanced at me, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his features, as if he had never seen me like this before. Sophie's eyes found mine from across the table, a subtle nod encouraging me to stay steady. "Maybe it is time we talk about facts, not feelings," I said quietly, sliding a sealed envelope toward myself under the table, unseen by anyone but Sophie. The room tensed, the air thick with anticipation, and the step-siblings exchanged puzzled glances, sensing that the balance they had assumed was now trembling. Rachel, my younger sister, whispered to Mark, "I do not think she is going to back down this time," and I could feel the eyes of my parents, David and Susan, tracking every small movement, a mixture of worry and pride in their gaze. The wooden floor beneath my feet felt grounding, almost like it reminded me of my childhood strategies, of staying quiet until the right moment, of observing and collecting every detail. "Emily, what are you doing?" Robert's voice rose slightly, disbelief edging his tone, and I looked at him steadily. "Just paying attention to the reality of this family," I replied, my voice calm even, carrying the weight of truth rather than anger. Jason shifted uneasily, finally breaking his silence with a soft, "Emily, I do not know what to say." Even the smallest sound from him felt like a spark, a sign that my presence and control were finally being acknowledged. I noticed Sophie subtly pointing toward the envelope, and I knew the plan we had quietly devised was about to unfold. Something long concealed, a truth no one had expected, was ready to surface, and I could feel the room holding its collective breath, every eye anticipating the moment when hidden realities would start to ripple through this fragile family structure, changing everything. Just as I thought I was gaining a foothold, the air shifted in the room, thick with whispers and subtle glances that made my stomach twist. I had not anticipated the depth of deception that had quietly taken root over the years. My sister-in-law, Jessica, leaned toward Jason with a soft laugh that seemed harmless, yet the words she whispered carried the weight of manipulation. "Emily has been hiding things from everyone. Do you really trust her?" Jason's eyes flickered with doubt for a moment, and I felt a sudden chill as the implications sank in. How many times had my actions been twisted, my intentions rewritten by someone else to cast me in a shadow I could not escape? I glanced at Robert, who nodded subtly to Jessica, his expression calm but satisfied, as though he had been waiting for this exact setup to unfold. "Emily, why did you not mention the financial arrangements from your previous work?" Linda's voice was soft but pointed, as if revealing a carefully planted accusation. My heart pounded, my mouth dry, and I realized that the lies had been so intricately woven that everyone around me was accepting them as truth. I thought they were private," I whispered, my voice barely audible, hoping for Jason's intervention. He hesitated, glancing at the documents on the table, but the seed of doubt had already begun to grow. The step-siblings exchanged subtle smirks, their satisfaction barely contained, as if my confusion and betrayal were exactly what they had been waiting to see. My parents' faces mirrored concern and disbelief, yet there was nothing they could do in the moment. Every careful step I had taken, every cautious trust, was being undermined in real time, and I felt the walls of certainty around me collapse. I clenched my hands, trying to keep my composure, yet the room seemed to close in, each whisper a reminder of the manipulation that had infiltrated this family. The air felt heavier, the warmth of Thanksgiving long gone, replaced by an intricate web of lies that no one had yet realized, and at that moment, I knew the moment of truth I had been preparing for was hanging by a thread, ready to shatter the fragile trust of everyone in the room. After the whispers and glances had settled into a tense silence, I spent the evening trying desperately to repair what had been shattered. I picked up my phone and dialed Jason again, my fingers trembling as I watched the seconds tick by. "Jason, please just listen to me," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. His voicemail picked up, leaving me with only the echo of my own desperation. I sent texts, each carefully worded, explaining the misunderstandings, the truth about the envelope I had kept hidden, and my loyalty to our marriage. "Emily, I do not know what to say," he typed back hours later, and then nothing more, leaving the words hanging like a fragile thread in the cold air. I drafted emails to my father-in-law, attempting to clarify, to show evidence of my integrity, including bank statements and correspondence that would prove my honesty. But each message went unanswered, or returned with curt replies, cold and dismissive. Even letters that I had written longhand, folded neatly and placed in envelopes with careful notes, never reached the right hands. Robert handed them back without reading, saying only, "Keep them for yourself." I tried to explain to Linda, cautiously, in the kitchen. "I never meant for any of this confusion. Please understand what really happened." She shook her head slightly, lips pressed tight, refusing to acknowledge my words. The step-siblings giggled from the living room, passing notes under the door, each one twisting the narrative subtly, making me the source of imagined betrayals, and every attempt to communicate, to clear my name, dissolved into more misunderstanding. I even reached out to my parents with tearful calls, recounting the injustice and the manipulation I had endured, but the conversations ended with polite condolences and distant sympathies, as if they could do nothing from miles away. By the end of the night, my phone lay silent. My email inbox cold and empty, and the envelopes stacked neatly on my desk remained unread by the very people who had the power to set things right. Sitting alone in the dim light of the kitchen, the weight of isolation pressed down, leaving me suspended in a quiet despair, with the truth known only to me, and the world outside my control, continuing as if my efforts had never existed. The house was quiet now, the echoes of the evening's chaos lingering like a heavy fog. I sat alone on the couch, the dim glow of the lamp casting long shadows across the living room, and felt a weight settle in my chest that had nothing to do with fatigue. Jason had retreated to his bedroom hours ago, leaving only the faint sound of the television humming in the background, and Robert and Linda had disappeared into their rooms, the family gathering reduced to silence. I whispered to myself, "I cannot believe this is how it ended," and the words felt hollow in the emptiness. I glanced at the unopened envelope still on the table, a symbol of the truth that had yet to reach the ears of those who could have understood. My thoughts wandered to the moments that had led me here, the years of trying to be what everyone expected, and I realized with a pang of clarity that I had spent so much time bending myself to the will of others that I had lost sight of who I truly was. "Emily, are you all right?" Sophie's soft voice echoed from the doorway, and I turned to see her standing there, concern etched across her features. I think I am," I said quietly, though my voice did not carry conviction. The loss I felt was profound, not just of trust or comfort, but of connection, of the certainty that family should provide. The silence was suffocating, and even my own parents' words of sympathy over the phone could not bridge the chasm of loneliness. Every message I had sent, every call and letter, had failed to convey the truth or reclaim the trust that had been stripped away. I sank deeper into the couch, feeling the cold leather beneath me as if it mirrored the emptiness I carried inside. For a moment, I allowed myself to mourn not just for the fractured relationships, but for the sense of self I had set aside in the hopes of being accepted. Yet amidst the sorrow, a quiet awareness began to grow, a recognition that though I was alone and misunderstood, this moment marked the beginning of a shift. The faintest spark of resolve appeared, a subtle understanding that while the night had brought profound loss, it also held the first whisper of a path toward reclaiming my life, my voice, and the power that had always been mine to wield. The morning light streamed through the blinds, cutting sharp lines across my apartment as I sat at my desk, coffee in hand, reviewing the plans for the new project I had proposed at work. No one from my family was there to oversee or comment, and the quiet gave me a freedom I had not known in years. "Emily, I think your idea could actually change the direction of the whole department," my colleague Aaron said, leaning over my shoulder with genuine enthusiasm, and for the first time in a long while, I allowed myself a small smile of pride. I drafted an outline for a presentation, meticulously noting every detail, every statistic, every visual element that would make the pitch undeniable. Later, during a short break, I stepped out onto the balcony and dialed a number I had memorized by heart, calling a mentor who had once guided me through a particularly difficult career decision. "I am ready for the next step," I told him, voice steady. "I need to challenge myself in ways I never allowed before." By the afternoon, I was walking through the office corridors with my head held high, clipboard in hand, feeling the pulse of ambition and determination flow through me. My assistant, Lily, stopped me, concern shadowing her eyes. "Emily, are you sure you want to take this on alone?" I nodded firmly. "This is my work, my responsibility, and my voice. I will see it through." The client meeting arrived, and I presented the project with calm confidence, answering questions with precision and authority, earning nods and impressed expressions from executives who had underestimated me in the past. I returned to my office, alone but energized, knowing that the recognition I received was built entirely on my effort and strategy, without reliance on family approval or intervention. As I packed up for the evening, Aaron peeked in, smiling. "This is just the beginning, Emily. You are on the path to something much bigger." Standing by the window, watching the city lights flicker on, I felt a sense of possibility stretching ahead, a quiet certainty that the next chapter would be one where my talents, judgment, and perseverance would finally be seen and valued, hinting at the success that was quietly waiting for me in the days to come. The morning sun hit the glass facade of the office building as I adjusted the blazer over my shoulders, the embroidered nameplate reading, "Emily Harper, Senior Project Manager," gleaming softly under the fluorescent lights. Walking through the lobby, I felt the quiet confidence of someone who had earned her place, every step deliberate, every glance steady. "Emily, the board is ready for you," my assistant, Lily, called, her voice tinged with excitement and respect, and I nodded, smoothing my hair back before entering the conference room. The executives looked up, some with surprise, others with genuine interest, as I began presenting the new initiative I had spearheaded, my voice clear and measured, my hands moving to emphasize key points. Midway, one of the directors, a man named Richard, leaned forward. "Emily, your insight on the market trends is exceptional. Have you considered leading the expansion team?" I allowed a subtle smile, feeling the recognition of my abilities that I had fought so hard to claim. "I have, and I believe the team and I are prepared to take on the challenge," I replied confidently, gesturing to the charts and projections laid out meticulously on the table. After the meeting, as I walked back to my office, the weight of the past months lifted slightly, replaced with a sense of authority that was entirely my own. I caught sight of my reflection in the glass wall of the hallway, blazer crisp, badge shining, and realized that every long hour, every moment of doubt and isolation, had led to this embodiment of competence and trust. Later, in a quiet corner of the office lounge, Sophie sent a text, "You are unstoppable, Emily." And I let myself laugh softly, the sound warm in the empty space around me. As I glanced at the calendar on my desk, the date reminding me of the Thanksgiving night that had changed everything, I understood that the present success was inseparable from the moments of challenge, tension, and revelation that had brought me here, and my mind flicked briefly to the envelope that had started it all, waiting for the right time in the unfolding story of my life. The waiting room smelled faintly of antiseptic and fresh coffee, the ticking clock on the wall marking each second like a countdown to an inevitable confrontation. I sat with my hands clasped tightly in my lap, the leather of the chair cold beneath my fingertips, feeling the weight of anticipation press against my chest. Jason had arrived earlier, sitting silently across from me, his eyes occasionally flicking to the floor, as though avoiding my gaze might prevent the tension from building any further. "Emily, are you ready for this?" he finally asked, his voice low, hesitant, carrying the gravity of everything we had endured. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I am. We need to face it, whatever it is, together." The nurse called a name down the corridor, and we followed, walking slowly, each step measured, the sterile hallways amplifying the rhythm of our own breathing. As we entered the private room, I noticed Robert and Linda already there, sitting stiffly, expressions unreadable, their eyes on us with a mixture of expectation and suspicion. "Emily, Jason," Robert said evenly, "thank you for coming. We need to discuss the matter thoroughly before proceeding." My stomach tightened, a swirl of nerves and determination coiling inside me. The small table between us seemed to stretch into an invisible barrier, yet I did not shrink. I leaned slightly forward, placing my hands deliberately on the surface, signaling that I was fully present and prepared. Linda's gaze flicked to the envelope in my bag at my side, curiosity barely hidden, and she asked, "Are you bringing something with you?" I remained silent, offering only a subtle nod, letting the weight of anticipation hang in the air. Jason's hand brushed mine under the table, a quiet reassurance that we were aligned, and I could feel a shift in control, the balance beginning to tilt, as I allowed myself to claim space in a room that had long been dominated by doubt and misjudgment. Every word, every glance, and every unspoken calculation in the room built toward a crescendo, the air taut with the potential of revelation, and as the door closed behind the nurse, sealing us in this moment, I knew the next breath I took could change everything, and the truth I had carried so carefully was poised to surface. I reached into my bag and slowly placed the envelope on the table, the edges crisp, the paperweight tangible in the tense silence. Robert leaned forward slightly, curiosity flickering across his face, while Linda's hand hovered near her mouth, a subtle sign of anticipation. "What is this, Emily?" Jason asked, his voice calm but carrying a tremor of uncertainty. I opened the envelope and pulled out the documents, laying them carefully in front of all of them. "These are the contracts and financial statements proving my work, my decisions, and the assets that have always been managed independently," I explained, my tone steady, every word deliberate. Robert's eyes narrowed slightly, scanning the pages, and he looked up at me, not with anger, but with the first hint of respect he had ever shown. "I had assumed control," he said quietly, "but this is entirely your doing." Linda exhaled slowly, realizing for the first time that her assumptions had been wrong. "Emily, I did not see this coming," she murmured, her voice betraying a mixture of disbelief and admiration. Jason reached across the table, placing his hand over mine, a silent affirmation of support. I sat back, keeping my composure, letting the weight of the evidence speak louder than any confrontation could. The step-siblings shifted uneasily, exchanging glances as the subtle power I had quietly amassed became undeniably visible to everyone. "It appears you have been operating in a capacity we never recognized," Robert added, his tone neutral but cutting through the room with clarity, and in that moment, the balance of authority had irrevocably shifted. A stunned quiet settled over us, the tension replaced by realization, and as I watched their expressions, I could see the magnitude of the change, the shock, the recognition, and the subtle awe that I had become someone they had underestimated entirely. And as the last page settled on the table, a silent understanding passed through the room. The Emily they thought they knew was no longer the same, and the implications of her independence and foresight hung heavily in the air, leaving everyone, including Jason, visibly shaken by the quiet, undeniable truth of what had just been revealed. The room remained silent for a long moment after the documents had been laid out, each person processing the undeniable proof of my independence and careful planning. Robert's gaze softened slightly, a flicker of acknowledgement passing across his face, and he leaned back in his chair. "Emily, I see now that we underestimated you," he said, his voice calm but carrying weight. Linda, still holding her hands together, nodded slowly. "I did not expect this level of foresight and control. I suppose we owe you an explanation." I inhaled deeply, letting the calm settle into my body, and replied evenly, "The explanations are not what matter anymore. What matters is the reality of the situation and the boundaries that must now exist." Jason shifted beside me, his hand brushing mine in quiet solidarity, and I looked directly at each family member, ensuring my presence was felt and my authority acknowledged. "From this point forward," I continued, my tone steady and firm, "decisions regarding my work, my time, and my space will not be questioned or undermined. I expect respect for those boundaries." The step-siblings exchanged uneasy glances, the subtle power they thought they held dissipating into the air. "Emily, do you expect us to simply accept this without discussion?" Robert asked carefully, his words measured, testing the limits of the new balance. "Discussion is welcome only when it is constructive and based on truth, not assumption or manipulation," I answered, my voice unwavering, letting the clarity of my position resonate. Jason squeezed my hand, a quiet anchor, as Linda exhaled softly, processing the sudden shift in dynamics. The air felt charged with possibility and tension, the recognition of my capabilities evident in their expressions, but there remained an unspoken weight. The history of misjudgment and the undercurrents of doubt had not entirely vanished. As I stood to gather my belongings, The envelope now folded neatly and tucked away, I felt the first tangible sense of control I had held in years. Yet I knew that full trust and resolution within this family would take more time, leaving a lingering sense of anticipation and uncertainty in the room. The sunlight filtered gently through the blinds of my apartment, casting a soft glow over the desk, where the envelope from that fateful day now rested folded neatly in the corner. Life had not returned to perfection, but there was a quiet clarity in my days that had been absent before. I moved through the routines of work, planning, and small pleasures with a sense of calm confidence, aware of my boundaries and the respect I had earned without needing to prove myself through conflict. From this journey, I learned that self-respect and intuition are the strongest guides one can have. Understanding your worth and protecting your emotional and financial space is not selfish, it is necessary. To anyone out there feeling trapped by the expectations or judgments of others, know that your value is not defined by those around you. Trust your instincts, take small steps toward independence, and allow yourself to reclaim your voice. Healing comes gradually, often in quiet moments of decision rather than grand gestures. I want you to remember that the power to shape your life is already within you, even when the world seems intent on shaping you otherwise. Thank you for listening, for sharing in this space where our experiences of betrayal, loss, and discovery can be held and understood. You are not alone, and every step you take toward awareness and self-sovereignty is a step toward freedom. My name is Emily. I am 28, and the core lesson I want to share with you is trust your intuition and honor your own boundaries. As I look forward, I keep the envelope as a quiet emblem on my desk, a reminder of the strength that comes from standing firm. The story of that Thanksgiving night and the months that followed continues to echo in my choices and my growth, and there are more chapters ahead that show how the courage to claim your voice transforms relationships, challenges, and the unexpected opportunities life offers. For those who want to witness the unfolding of these moments, the next stories in our playlist continue to reveal the power of resilience, the nuances of family dynamics, and the subtle victories of reclaiming one's life, guiding you through the lessons and triumphs that are still to come.